You're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers.
Presented by CMH Heli Skiing and Peak Performance.
The Low Pressure Podcast is sponsored by CMH Heli Skiing, where you can choose from 11 unique locations and experiences, including 4, 5, 6, and 7-day signature trips, the brand new single-day trips. You can do small groups with just you, 4 friends, and a guide, or the private and exclusive, where you get the whole place just to yourself. So find your next adventure at cmhheli.com. The Low Pressure Podcast is also sponsored by Peak Performance. There are many ways to make it down a mountain, but the best line is your line. And the adventure is there, so make it yours. Visit peakperformance.com and get the gear to unlock your free ride spirit.
You know, podcasts are great.
Yeah, they're great. I love listening. I love listening.
So let's get to know you a little bit. So, we met last year at IF3. I didn't know you were up there. You just kind of popped in. I was like, oh, Brooklyn.
Yeah, it was kind of sneaky.
Yeah, just a quick in and out, right?
Yeah.
What were you up there for? What were you watching?
Alex Armstrong, she just invited me to come up. She had actually came down to Bellingham the week previous for her premiere with TGR.
Right.
And so it's kind of funny. We had never met each other, but we had gone back and forth on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And so it was shoulder season. So I was like, I'll just pop up to Whistler and go and hang out with the Whistler crew.
A couple hours, pop in, pop out. Yeah, sweet. Well,
totally.
We're stoked you're there because now, like I told you, I always like meeting people beforehand. So I don't just invite myself over to your house and you're like, who is this random guy?
Yeah.
So we're in your house now and I was just gushing about how much I love it. So congratulations.
Thank you.
On a nice, comfortable living space. But you grew up here in Bellingham?
Yes, I grew up in Bellingham, and my family's from here too.
So not too far away. And how do you classify yourself as an athlete? Are you more of a skier? Are you more of a biker? Are you more of a rollerblader? I saw some hockey skates in the garage.
Yeah, we've been ice skating and rollerblading right now since it's been low tide.
Yeah, right.
I don't really know. It's kind of hard. I feel like I just kind of like doing whatever is good and what feels right. And, I have a drive for both, and both mountain biking and skiing kind of fit into my life in these two different ways. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people perceive me more as being a skier just because you put out the sick Alaska segment and you put out all these movies and people are like, rah, that's what a professional skier looks like. But to me, I have that same relationship with biking too. Mm-hmm. Even more so, I feel like I'm a way better biker than I am a skier, which is a weird feeling.
Oh, for real? Because you're getting all the attention for the skiing versus your biking?
Yeah.
And is it a personal drive to flip the narrative or change the narrative?
Yes. Yeah, just a little bit. I definitely had some moments where I'm I don't know. I find that for me, for some reason, skiing is just more challenging.
Do you feel like you have a little bit of an imposter syndrome with regards to the attention you get for the skiing?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think too, the culture of skiing, everybody is always trying to prove themselves and be rad all the time. And I think I'm definitely there's an aspect of that I really enjoy, just the challenge of being every year being let's make a movie. Let's learn how to snowmobile. Let's get out to a different zone. Let's pursue that. Whereas mountain biking, I don't have, I have some of the best mountain biking here in Bellingham. So I can just roll out my back door and, go and hit jumps. And it's a little bit more of a casual learning process and a more natural learning process,
Because you can do it almost any time, right?
Totally.
And you don't have to drive an hour.
Yeah.
We skied Baker today, which was awesome. Is that where you grew up skiing?
Yes. Baker is where I grew up skiing.
Yeah. Did you get passes with your family? How did you get into skiing?
I feel like I didn't ski a ton when I was younger. My parents did take me up skiing. So I did have a little bit of exposure to skiing. I definitely had exposure to skiing just growing up in Bellingham because there was a lot of other families who skied and kids.
Would you go with your friends and their parents when they would go on a trip sort of thing? No,
not really. Yeah. But I mean, like, I knew a lot of other kids who like grew up skiing here. But it wasn't really into like my college years that I really got into it, started saving up for pass, started going every winter. And I felt like it was just really natural. Like all of my mountain bike friends, we would all mountain bike. We would like mountain bike and ski during the shoulder seasons. And like once winter was like in full, like, full season, we would all just go and like ski together. So like it just felt kind of like a natural thing for me.
Yeah, it's easy peasy.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really like a family thing. It was more like a choice that you made. Like that that was kind of the same for me. Like you had asked, it was like I went with my family 4 times a year until I hit high school, and then we would go a bunch in high school. And I was like, I like this. I'm going to move to Whistler.
Yeah, and I feel like that's such a common thing for people.
Right.
Having to kind of like work to become a ski bum.
Work to become a ski bum.
Yeah.
Right? And I was thinking about this the other day. It's like ski bumming back in the day was just so easy because things were cheap. Mm-hmm. And you could easily like live in the bush or live in your car or live in your van.
It's a lot different. It's like in just a couple of years.
Yeah, like now. Like I was having this conversation with the other day. Like, is the dirt bag, like, is it extinct? Like the ski dirt bag? Is it even possible to be a dirt bag now? Where you can like be a greasy dude, like living in your van or living in your car. Yeah. With like Sprinter vans and things now are very different.
It's very different. Yeah, and it's always interesting because all of the people that I know who've been ski bums, like probably including myself, like have been people who've been like really privileged. Like I think it's a privileged thing to be a ski bum. Like yeah. I think like
it's changed. It's been gentrified. Yeah. Ski bumming has been gentrified.
Totally. And like I don't know. People are always asking me like, what are some of the barriers to getting in? Of course there's like monetary barriers and there's transportation, but like
accommodations.
Yeah, like, and it's like even if like people come from the same economic backgrounds, there is a culture here in Bellingham and a lot of the other ski towns of people just being able to be like big kids and be a ski bum, and that's like totally normal versus like in a lot of other places like that is not, or that is like
yeah like and even like in Whistler, like I'm a ski bum, right, but I'm not the bum part of it isn't quite as much as what it was in the past, where you could actually be like a literal bum. Totally. What I mean?
Yeah, I think it's
like you still have to have money to be a ski bum.
Yes.
Like it's impossible to like really shoestring it and dirtbag it like people used to do in the day, which is
I think like, yeah, as far as like, cultural barriers, right? Like, I think to a lot of people of color, being a ski bum means that they're not creating the stability that they need to create for like the next generation that their parents want that for them, Yeah,
interesting. So like your experience and my experience in life is vastly different, but we've both found skiing. We were both up on Baker today. We're both shredding pow. We're both hanging out in the lodge doing the exact same thing. So your route and my route intersected at this point, which is fascinating to me, but it's so different. Like, for me, I grew up in a very, very, well, I was going to say in Canada, we don't have many black people.
No, you guys don't.
We have.
I'm like, it's always just like, okay, so there's no black people here.
When you're walking down the street, there's one.
There's like Indian people and Native people, but like where
there's so
are people going to be weird to me here, or like what is the deal?
Do you think that like are people going to be weird to me because do you feel like you stand out?
I haven't had any like weird experiences yet, but I like definitely.
You expect it to though?
No, I just like, I don't know. I just feel like there's definitely like, you can kind of see like the tension in Canada between people who are like, everybody in Canada has like immigrated there. Like Canada's pretty new, right?
Yeah.
But you can like see the tension between, different races and like classes. And, it's like, well, if there's no black people here, then like am kind of invisible, but like, you know,
it's almost like
there's like a hierarchy that I like notice, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's almost like everybody has their own little crew, their squad, their group, right? Like I grew up in Vancouver, and we have a massive Asian population.
Yes.
And a massive Southeast Asian population. Huge. Like big Chinese, big Indian populations. And that's what I grew up with, like extremely multicultural. Mm-hmm. But like I said, we don't have a lot of like, you know, African descendant people. And
I think like,
and it's interesting hearing your point of view. When you go up there, you're like, where are my, like, where do you like, when you're around more people that look like you and, you know, have the same kind of history as you, do you feel more comfortable because you're around them?
Oh, definitely.
Like, because they're there, like, okay, cool. Like,
yeah,
it's that without even saying like I'm comfortable. It's just this sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, right? Like, I think it all just depends on like where you're at and who you're with, and like who sees you a certain way, right?
Right.
Like in Canada, like a lot of people don't have, like a lot of people have like, I feel like a lot of knowledge about, you know, indigenous issues, but not necessarily like Black issues in America, and that's just like different.
It's
right?
because we're working on one thing at a time.
Totally.
And it's also that's what we have.
Yeah.
Those are the issues we have. We don't really have Black issues. We have Black people in Canada. Majority.
And you do, but it's like it's different than
it's different. Yeah. We don't have the same sort of history that the US has.
Yeah.
Right. We were the place that you guys would escape to. Mm-hmm. So, you know, things were built and systems were created slightly more differently, right? Like I find that a lot of our Black population is from the Caribbean.
Yeah, totally.
Like huge from, like if you go to like Toronto and stuff, you're like, oh, okay, this makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, so it's interesting that you see that you would use the word tension and stuff, because that's not something I would have ever have thought of, because you know, I'm, you know, look at me, I'm a white male in Canada. You know what I mean? It's
interesting because it's like, you know, I mean, I don't always experience this, but I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, there's the minority, and then there's the minority, you know?
Right. And then do you change how you act or interact or operate when you're that way?
Not a whole lot. I feel like
it doesn't put any governors on you? Do you like slow down or like not push through as hard on something, or like do you dial it back because you don't want to?
I try not to. The one thing that I really do love about, I think, some of my experiences in like, you know, like the Whistler bike park. I haven't spent a ton of time like riding in Whistler, like skiing, but you know, going out with IWO and
which is
Indigenous Women's Outdoors, and like going and riding bikes with like 40 women, like Indigenous women, or just like seeing more people of color, just out riding bikes. I feel like there's more of a presence in Vancouver and in Whistler than there is like necessarily in the States with like extreme sports. And like I feel like
access to extreme sports or participation in extreme sports, like, or visibility.
I think like all of those things. And I think, you know, for the most part, like I experience like a lot of solidarity. Like I'm like, yes, like I don't quite have what IWO has, and I am like a little bit jealous, but I'm like, I'm so happy that this exists, and I feel like I have that solidarity even though I don't quite understand, you know?
Yeah. Do you?
And that's such a good feeling.
Does that create a drive to like create something like that here? Are you that type of person that would go out of your way to build an organization such as that?
I think like for me, I've been just like curious because I feel like there's just so many people who are unseen here in Bellingham. And like for me, like creating that was hosting jump nights this last summer.
What's jump nights?
I would just like have these impromptu jump nights at Galbraith, and
which is it, like a bike park or?
Galbraith is just like north of my house. But yeah, it's just like it's kind of our main riding zone. And there's a spot called the Cedar Dust Jumps. And I would just like host impromptu jump nights there with other like women. And like, honestly, for me, like, it was just so nice having a little bit of that space. But I have moments where I'm like, oh, I want to take it a step further and just, you know, put it out there to like all of the, you know, people of color in Bellingham to go on a group ride and just like see who shows up and see who wants to participate. Because I think there's more of us here than we actually acknowledge.
Right.
But
and you kind of will be willing to be that rallying point, right?
But I feel like, to go back to your question of like, do I feel like I fit in? I don't really feel like I fit in like really anywhere though. Like that's like, but I don't like, you're like sad, but like, I don't.
No, I'm just curious. Like, I don't. This isn't sadness on my face. I'm like interested in your experience, right? Because you have chosen to enter this very white world. Yeah.
And like, you know, there's no doubt like,
and very male world as well, right? So you're fighting two battles here.
And it's like, I love skiing and I love biking, and that's like so part of me. Mm-hmm. And like, I grew up in a very like white town, you know, I am, you know, light skinned, and like, I don't have super kinky hair. And like, there's a certain degree of like privilege that I have, you know, speaking the way that I do. And it's like, when I do go to like a place like Atlanta, which I love Atlanta, like, you know, people treat me differently than they treat me here. It's like,
in which way?
Like in Atlanta, like I'm like the white girl.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And then do you feel out of place there? Because like,
totally. And like, that's like not an uncommon experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think like a lot of people of color experience that, just like the feeling of like not really fitting in quite anywhere. And then, you know, for me, you know, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder for a while, and then I've kind of realized like, oh, I don't need this to be like perfect or anything. I just need to like find my like right people, and my right people are not necessarily all white people. And now,
can I ask you a question, like kind of from a different point of view? Is obviously you feel more. You're basically, if I can sum it up into like a crude statement, is you're kind of searching for your place or your people or your you know, you just want to feel that sense of belonging and that comfortability. In your time getting into the ski world or the bike world, have there been any like barriers that have been specifically put up? Like, we don't want you here. You're not welcome. Like, this isn't like not accepting. Like, I know it's not like for me to walk into a bike shop or a ski shop, I can just stroll right in because I look like everybody else in there, right? I don't even have to think twice about it, right? But say you walk into a ski shop, are people not giving you the same attention? Are they not saying, hey, what's going on? Are they not conversing with you in the same way? Or are you walking into that unsure of whether they're going to do that or not? And then that in turn affects how you're reacting. Do you know what I mean? So like, For, and I know there are a lot of shitty people out there.
This is a big conversation.
Well, I'm interested. No. But like, there's like, the people that I'm around and the people that I associate myself with, whether they're skiers or not skiers, I associate myself with decent people. And within this greater ski culture and people that are in it, the community, like just look at the people up at Baker today. This is the first time I've skied Baker in 20 something years. I was in that room and it's like, how many conversations was I having with all these random people, and I felt comfortable and I felt like this is my place.
Yeah, you're able to kind of like,
because I've been in the ski culture for so long, right? Yeah. And you know, I was watching you and you were doing the exact same thing, but when you approach a new but you've been skiing Baker your whole life, and that's your place there as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, like,
but say you go to another lodge or another place.
I've certainly experienced like plenty of microaggressions, like in the ski space.
Microaggressions, that's a good term.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced a lot of microaggressions. I haven't experienced anything that was like extreme or overt.
Mass, like what? Can you give me an example?
Just like people like wanting to touch my hair, or people like commenting on like my ability or my skill, or like when I first took my like first Airy 1, I remember I had a guide who I was working with. I was so excited to be there. I had already spent so much time in the Baker backcountry. I knew all those mountains, right? And like
the names of them,
yeah,
like how far, what tree you gotta drop in at,
yes,
right?
Totally. And like I remember the guide who was guiding me was like, yeah, so where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Bellingham. And he's like, no, but where you really like, I get that thing, yeah. I get it so often. It's like my family's been here like for so long. Time. Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because I know a lot of those people don't mean any, I could be wrong. I'm not speaking for all of them, but like for myself, I will never ask anybody that question because I've heard what you just said. I've heard so many times.
And it's such a bummer because I have like my family being here is like such a cool story. Like it's crazy. Like, and it's, and
it's interesting because like you get those microaggressions and like coming from, and I'm going to speak for myself, right? So I'm a curious and inquisitive person. I'm sure when I was younger, I've been like, oh, where are you from? Well, where are you actually from? You know what I mean? Like, because it's out of curiosity of wanting to know more about you. Yeah. Without understanding that you perceive it a different way. Like I'm curious about you, but you're like, oh, come on, dude. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to have to answer this, or I don't think I need to because I'm not really any different than you, and what does it matter anyways? Yes. Right? It's not that big a deal, but it is.
I think it just comes from like people making assumptions of like how people got where they're at or what they're doing or what their family's like. And but I think going back to what you were saying about the like whole anxiety about having those scenarios, like,
and does that like hinder you or put a governor on your ability to go full on into that situation?
I think so. I think I've definitely gotten better at that. I've definitely had some like really traumatic experiences like that were very overt, not necessarily like in the ski or bike space, but like I've had some experiences that have like
in life
completely like, changed, the way that I like really saw myself, right? You can't necessarily like outrun the way that you look or the way that you talk or the way that people perceive you. You can't outrun that like racism. And like I've definitely had those experiences, and they've definitely like, affected the way that I interact with people. And I'm trying to like unlearn that. And there's like, I understand why people have that fear, right? Like everybody's afraid of bears, even though you don't know if they're going to like actually come into your campsite.
Right.
But I think I do see it with, some of my other friends who are athletes who like can't let themselves be a part of the community that they want to, it's not necessarily like perfect, or they're not able to open themselves up to people because they have those anxieties
and those fears, because it's like, well,
and it's like,
what if I think you're going to do what I don't want you to do? So I'd almost like, rather not do it.
It's reaffirmed, but a piece of that is it's also genetic. It's, it's family trauma that kind of gets hardwired into you to like not trust that thing. Right.
Interesting.
But yeah.
And have you seen, so there's definitely in the last few years been a big shift or like a mind shift or an awareness that's been growing, which you've been a big part of. Have you seen any changes or because of that recently? Like, someone like Shannon Corsi, who did Nexus Film, which you were a part of.
Nexus was awesome.
You mentioned you got to go to Alaska and ski with Michelle Parker and be like, look, I can do this. Yeah. People that look like me can do this shit. Yeah. Since this kind of movement is, you're finally getting your time and you're finally getting your space and in these productions and in podcasts and magazines and, have you found that you're able to maybe reduce some of that anxiety, or are people now becoming a little bit less, ignorant's a strong word, but maybe a little less ignorant to, how you our perceived things, like, hey, can I touch your hair, or where are you from? You know what I mean? Are people getting better at it?
I think so. I mean, I still see it for sure.
Right.
I think it's getting better. I think people have more education. I mean, I do see, like, I felt like 2020, there was a humongous boom in the industry for, brands to take on DEI initiatives. And I think they went in really hard. And then lately, I feel like I've, I know that the outdoor industry is struggling as a whole. I know the bike industry is like...
The bike industry shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Everybody right now is hurting.
Yes.
Especially after this last Christmas.
Yeah.
Nobody paid for it. No one's buying anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's everyone.
But I've definitely seen a lot of companies not follow through with their Black and brown athletes and not develop them and not trust them and not see them for who they really are. And that's really hard to see, your friends who have gone to Denali and been to Alaska like multiple times and, have been in films, like not get like...
And are reliable and
yes,
are exactly what you're looking for, right?
Yeah. And are like well educated, I am seeing like, especially like Black and brown women not be, recognized for what they bring to the table. And I think a degree of like why I have had success is because like I've been able to kind of like assimilate really well and kind of just like, be able to kind of like go.
You play the game.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And like that doesn't necessarily like create radical change,
Right. And do you think it has something to do with like, all right, 2020 we started these programs, this is great, right?
Yeah.
Like and then you get to a point where it's almost like you're eating your own tail, or it's where it's like we're not just paying lip service, we're really gonna put some attention into these communities and highlight them. In theory is a great idea because you can open up these avenues, you open up this space to these new markets. It really all comes down to money. And then maybe we can start selling some jackets to this market that has been underserviced or unallowed or like not welcome, for a pretty harsh term. And then they get to a point where, okay, well, maybe those communities aren't selling that much yet. So let's cut because we got to like focus on other shit. You know what I mean? It's almost like they get to that point. Do you think that's what it is? It's like you said, maybe not follow it through, and maybe they're not getting the results that they want. So they're just like giving up.
I don't know. Yeah.
Who knows?
To me, like, I think that we're in this like environment in this world where people are really hungry to see, different looking people doing different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you think about it just from
totally
the markets and the dollars, and the amount of people that like to do these things and have money to spend, see it through. So I don't know the financials. I don't make those decisions. If I made the decisions, I would be doing much better off myself.
Yeah,
but
it's hard to see. Oh, that's my sister. Yeah, I want brands to believe in Black and brown women when they say that they want to be professional athletes, when they say that they want to like go there,
instead of just be like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Cause cool. that was a big barrier for me, is like, I had to convince people like, I am doing this. This is who I am.
Right.
Even like after I put out a film called Becoming Ruby, and some of the responses from Becoming Ruby, I talked about, Becoming Ruby is this movie that I made about this character who basically like is a big mountain skier, and I've always wanted to becoming Ruby, and she like guides me by all these principles, right? Where she is always trying to bring people along with her. She's always thinking about others. She's always just strong and confident and poised, and she's very driven. And she kind of balances out like being like, I guess, an activist and an athlete. And this movie came out and it really like launched my career. And which is incredible. But some of the comments people were saying were like, oh, this is so cool that you made this movie. And this is before I even like really was pursuing skiing professionally or gone to Alaska or did any filming.
You're just creating a project about things that you like.
Yeah, totally. And people were like, oh, that's so cool. That's cool that you created that. That will inspire the next generation. I'm like, no, I'm telling you that like, this is who I am. This is me making a movie about who I'm going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you got a lot of attention from it.
Totally.
And you got kind of where you are now, which is helping inspire the now and the next generation.
But I like, you know, I wish people would have believed in me, you know, for saying who I am.
Right. Do you find that like, I can sense it like a frustration in you.
Yeah.
Like a big, big frustration.
Yes.
And, you know, you're so motivated and you're very successful with what you've done. And I hope you I hope you do get a chance to say like, to look back and like, let me ask you, are you able to look back and say like, look what I've accomplished? Like you just lit up when you talked about your Ruby film and how people were commenting on it and you were excited about it and it pushed your career forward, right?
I hope so. So I think it's still like, I think it's a little bit too early to tell, right? Of like, what the effect will be, but I hope so, you know?
Yeah, like I said, I can sense this frustration. Like I haven't gotten there yet, and I don't think you'll ever stop. Yeah. Right? I don't think you'll ever need to stop, unfortunately. Yeah. But, you know, that's why I'm asking is I'm like, and I'm just as someone that has a lot of goals and drives for things, and I get very frustrated when I don't, when I have an expectation of something, my expectations are unreachable. A lot of the times I put the goal is usually here and it's like it's physically impossible to get or like capably impossible to get there. Like I'm getting annoyed right now, right? Because I'm
sorry I got you.
No, I love this. No, it's all good. I love these kind of conversations where, but I've been trying to learn more now to like take a minute, practice some gratitude. Look what I have done.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and look back and say, okay, this is good. This is, and not try to not let my frustration or my drive or my stress get in the way of being able to appreciate what I have accomplished and where I have gone, right? Like, are you able to do that, or is it still just move forward? Okay, I did this. This is great. Time to move forward. Like, are you able to take stock of like the progress that you have made for not only yourself but for others?
Yeah, I think I struggle with that, honestly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that, you know, like for me, I've become a little mellower because I'm able to do that. Because if you're always, and I'm speaking only from my own experience, is when you're always like frustrated because something's not happening or something's not getting done, something's not happening, you just become miserable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though I'm doing all these things and people are like, hey, this is great, thank you, or good for you, or congratulations. I'm like, yeah, but
I think I just,
you know, it's the yeah buts that get in the way.
I think the biggest thing is like, I'm not trying to do this, but I definitely like, I feel like I shoulder the responsibility of like making sure that like there's like a foundation for like the
community that you're trying to
generation,
right?
And it's like I know I can't, you know, do everything.
Maybe you can.
Yeah,
but you know, I would say just take a minute one day and just.
But I definitely
pat yourself on the back, like, and I'm speaking on behalf of like I've seen what you've done, like I've been skiing as like my lifestyle for 20 some plus years, right? And in the last 11 I've been creating content and investigating, having conversations with people deep in this culture. And 5 years ago I wouldn't be having a conversation with you or someone who looked like you because they weren't involved. They weren't a part.
I guess that's true.
They weren't a part of the conversation. It wasn't even a thing, right? Now it is. Yeah. So that's a huge first step,
I guess that's
right?
true. Is like people are talking.
Well, it is, right? So like I want you, like I'm congratulating to you, right? So I hope that you keep striving to move forward and get this, but like, and be frustrated.
Yeah, totally.
Be annoyed, be a little pissed off.
Yeah.
But every once in a while realize that, oh, I've actually done something cool, and then allow yourself that.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I definitely feel like that. I feel like that so much so, like, of course I loved Nexus, but like with the Approach crew, I don't know if you've seen some of our films.
I think so. With I Have 3, did you have one on there?
We've put out 2 films.
The Approach, right?
But that
was this year's. The Approach came out. One of the Approach films came out this year.
Last year.
All right.
And then the year before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I get confused with so many I watch.
I know there's so many films, but yeah, it is like such an honor to like be a part of a crew that like really supports each other, like really tries to understand where they come from and understand their like strengths and their weaknesses. It's incredible to create all of the artwork for the Approach and like create like our own world that has its own culture with like, you know, we have like, you know, meetups, and we have like a Spotify playlist that's like, you know, everybody's following it. And, you know, to be on a crew where I get to be like, I want to ski here, or I want to ski this, and not necessarily like be plugged into an equation. You know, with the Approach crew, we kind of get together and we're like, okay, what you
figure it out together.
Yeah, I love.
Yeah. So I was chatting with Izzy Lynch about this not long ago, and when she started out, there was like, oh, I was the token girl on the team or on the trip, right? And now there's like the token person of color, which has always been a thing in society, but now it's finally made its way to the outdoor industry, right?
It's, you know, it's making turns.
But like you're saying, it's nice to not have to be a token, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it is really nice.
And I think that's great. And so I want to I want to find more about you.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know, what you do, I want to know more about you. So you were talking about being able to do the artwork for it.
Yeah.
And like looking at your Instagram page, I do like how you curate it. It's every third one, so it actually lines up.
It's kind of like it's a lot.
Your Instagram posts line up nice. I know it's a lot because Instagram is a lot. But like looking at your page, you've actually curated it. So you have like a photo and then a painting or an piece of artwork that you did, and then another like photo of whatever it is. And I was looking at that going, oh, that's really nice. And your style is very minimalistic. And then when I got to your house today, I'm like, oh, this
feels in line.
Yeah, the way that it feels in line, the way you live is reflective of the way that you do your art, which is really cool. So tell me about like you as an artist. Are you more of like a painter, or are you a little bit of everything? Like, do you have a preference?
So like my process for my art is I draw everything out with like pen and paper, and then I'll scan it in, or if I'm like lazy, I'll just like take an iPhone photo. I'll scan it into the computer, and then I'll use Photoshop to color it.
Oh, so you do it like through electronically?
Yes.
Oh, very cool.
And I love working with Photoshop because I love colors. And so I feel like it gives me like unlimited space to just explore all the different color options and see how they look with each other. And, you know, it gives me a space to make mistakes too, which I really like. I don't have any like... Control Z. Yeah. I like the idea of like sitting down and like painting sounds so stressful because you can't just like go back and be like, oh, I actually don't like this.
Yeah, right. Like I thought you were a painter. To be honest with you. More of like a digital artist.
Yeah, I'm a digital artist. Yeah.
And how did you get into that? Like, were you always like an artistic kid, or?
That's a good question. I started working in Photoshop when I was like 13. When I was like 13, I was convinced that I wanted to be a graphic designer.
Right.
I remember making a bunch of t-shirt designs and walking downtown Bellingham and like going to all the silk screening places and being like, print my designs, sell my designs. And they were terrible, like to begin with. I got a lot better.
It's like musicians when they listen to their first songs that they wrote.
And I was convinced that I like wanted to be a graphic designer. I was part of yearbook throughout my high school.
You were the yearbook designer? Yeah.
Yes. I was like editor for 2 years too. And I think I put out some really good yearbooks. Like I really changed. I changed the game.
Where are they?
No.
I don't need to see them, but where are they in the house?
Oh, they're in the house.
And you know exactly where they are.
Yeah, I
How
do.
often do you look at them?
Well, I just moved, so I looked at them over the summer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know,
it was funny because I just my last roommate, she went to high school with me.
Yeah.
And she got rid of the yearbook that I designed. She just moved out.
And you're like, what are you doing? I designed that.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't need this anymore. I don't care about these people. And you're like, well, but come on. It's my art.
And then in high school was like editor of my yearbook, and then pursued graphic design at Western, and I just
went to school for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so was that kind of your whole plan? Is just I'm going to do this as a career?
Yeah, I kind of just thought I would work like a 9 to 5 in an office, and have a more traditional job. And by the time I was ready to graduate college, like I kind of knew that I just wanted to have a life in the outdoors. I had like a handful of opportunities that kind of just like made me realize that there wasn't really any like Black women in the space, like, pursuing sports the way that I was doing.
Right.
And I felt like it was a really cool opportunity to like maybe be a little bit more visible.
And the cool part about this space, this outdoor space, is that it's very closely tied to graphic art.
Yes.
And visuals. So you can tie those in very, very well. Whether it's, creating graphics for yourself or for your brands or doing collabs or just like everybody in this outdoor creative world needs a logo or an
definitely.
image or a graphic or a shirt. I sure as hell do. Maybe I'm going to give you a call in a couple of weeks and be like, hey, can you help me with something?
It's cool. I've like, been able to work on like collabs with like Rumple, Blanket, and I just finished up like a collab with a coffee company, and I'm about to like do some artwork for like a knife brand, and like do like they like do lasered etched into like the knives.
So you're gonna create like a laser etched like design?
Yeah.
Is it like a pocket knife or like a folding knife kind of thing?
So it's just like kind of cool, like working on all these kind of like different things that kind of
Was Rumple the first one that you kind of started doing those collabs with?
Yeah, it was definitely one of the first ones.
How did that work out? Like explain that process. What was it all about? Like, what did you do? Was it like on a blanket or?
That was actually one of the more easy collabs that I've done.
And did you just like, cause you were telling me earlier, like I'm going to approach people and ask them, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. Did you say, hey, I got this cool idea for you?
When I first started out, I called people and cold emailed people. That was like my first ski, the first set of like ski art that I did. I actually have it in the closet. I should grab it. I'll show it to you.
Yeah, cool.
The first set of skis I did, that was like a cold call. And
you did a pair of skis, like a ski graphic?
Yeah, I've done a couple.
For whom?
One for Sago, and then one for Coalition.
Cool.
But when I first started, I kind of like was reaching out to people, cold calling people, being like, hey, check it out. I've never made any like thing for anything, but you should hire me.
All right, cool. How much money do you want?
Right. And then with the like Rumple collab, I feel like I had kind of like already established myself as somebody who could like put like art on products, and they reached out to me, and it was such a fun process. And it's always so cool seeing your art like huge,
I don't.
Yeah.
I've never heard my podcast blared over like a grocery store sound.
Yeah.
It's like Britney Spears, then the Low Pressure Podcast comes on while you're like buying broccoli. So were you like, was the goal kind of like to use like your writing, but also your art, and kind of leverage each other to kind of like use each as a stepping stone?
Oh, definitely.
Like, all right, well, if I can get an in with this company through my art, amazing.
Yeah.
But if I can use my writing with this company to get my art into there, well, that's also good.
Yeah, they definitely like work together. But then also I like to kind of keep them separate too, because I go through phases of life where, the art is like, you know, creating content, or, you know, the art is like,
because art for you is more of like a soul thing.
Yeah, it definitely is a soul thing.
And when it becomes exclusively work in your job, you're like, well, why did I turn into the thing that I love? It is my kind of escape into something that I'm.
And then I went through a phase this summer, before I moved into here, where I was like, I need like I want to work on a cool project. I want to like create something. I have all these colors in my head, but I like couldn't. For some reason, I wanted to work on like a really big art project, and I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And I have those like yearnings of being like, oh, I need to like take the time.
There's something building in like the back of your mind,
totally.
But you don't really know what
it's
it
weird,
is. You don't have an outlet for it. It's like, I gotta do something.
And it's weird because you would think that like, you know, being active is like enough of an outlet, but no, you have to like take care of all those different parts of you.
Yeah, right. That's just the physical part of you.
Yes.
Right? You know, physical and happiness. But then there's that creative side where you're like, I just need to make something.
Yeah. And I was so lucky. I felt like this last shoulder season, I worked with a couple of brands who really pushed me as an artist. And I loved like being able to work on like big, elaborate projects that have lots of deliverables and different details. And I love it.
Like what?
I ended up working on a set of like 10 designs for a t-shirt company.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just like a lot of back and forth. They sent me this pitch that was incredible. And yeah, it was really fun. I can't share too many details about it.
Yeah, I was trying to.
I know.
I had to ask. And so I don't see like a ton of art of yours in here. Like, are you like proud at like to display? Like, are you the kind of person that like will no?
You're asking me all these hard questions.
Well, that's what I do, right? That's what sets me apart is like,
yeah.
Because the one piece of art of yours that other than
is the snowboard.
There's a snowboard right there, but it's tucked up the stairs and around the corner so that when you walk in, you don't see it.
Yeah.
You've got that really beautiful painting in the garage above the garage door that I pointed out and was like, oh, that's nice. Those beautiful colors. You're like, oh, it's up in the garage, kind of hiding away.
Well, I created that.
That one as well. Nice, right?
But like you wouldn't know that was like, and then I also created some art for.
I was curious about that because it's not quite the same style as what I've seen of yours.
Yeah.
But like I said, are you the type of person that will create something I'm proud of this? And I want to display it because I don't think maybe you are. I think you create something, you're like, okay, it's kind of done. What else can we like? I don't like that. I love this, but I don't want to show it to anybody because I want to just create. I think, do you create just because you need to create rather than I create because I want to display it or show people stuff?
Oh, I feel like I create a lot just to create.
Mm-hmm.
But also like I feel like you know, like that piece of art is something that I created. And then I created like some pieces of art for my bedroom too that are not necessarily like my normal style.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, like what has been cool with the creative process of having a home is like being able to choose like, oh, these are the things that I want to have in my house. And that's been like a creative process in itself.
Right.
And I've been just kind of like taking my time and like making sure that the pieces of art that I do have on my own are like
the right places.
Yeah, they just like fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just like they make sense or they like really speak to me in my place of life. But also I feel like it's very much like an artist thing, you know, of being like, I can't look at my work, like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely like an artist thing of like, for me, I like having like a creative clean slate. And in past homes that I've lived in, I've had my own art in the space, and I've always wanted to switch it out. Like I've always been like, okay, this is
because this is what it's like with Picasso. We went through all those different phases, right? Well, that was an old phase. I want to take that down. I want to put up the new phase that I'm excited about right now, right? This is what I'm doing now. So
yeah, I would like constantly being like, okay, like I like this art, but I need to switch it out because I can't look at it anymore, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've talked to some photographers that are like that too.
It's funny because it's like kind of like, you know, oh, she doesn't have art in her house. She must not be like, you know, a self-centered artist. But I think it's like the opposite of like, I can't look at myself. I can't look at it anymore. You know? Fair
enough. And it's your space, right? So it's, you do it how it works best for you, right? Especially in your own home.
And I sit here in my home and I create art all the time. You know, I'm like constantly creating. It's so nice to have like just a blank air space, you know?
And
clean slate.
And then so like moving forward with kind of that ability to combine your athletic endeavors and that side of your business life. You know, I'm an athlete. It's also how I make some money, but I'm also an artist. That's also how I make some money. Is the goal to just continue that, see how far you can go with it? Or do you kind of want to lean towards one or the other? Or is it like, you know, I can always do art. I'm always going to do art. That's always going to be there, even when my knees don't work. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know like what is in the future for me at all.
You're more of like, I need to work on what's happening now.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. I can't tell you what's going to happen. It just seems like I can't have like one without the other. Yeah.
And I'm going to bring it back to what we talked about.
Yeah.
Near the like when I mentioned with your frustration.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, because you were just talking about like, I've got this thing building in me. I need to create. I need to get that energy out.
Yeah.
Do you think
you can tell I have a lot of energy?
Well, it's just creative energy. I have this need for output, right? I have this need to create, and with art, you have the ability to do that right now.
Yes.
Right. And then
are you saying that skiing is like, or athletic, it's just too delayed?
Well, I think what we were talking about with your desire to keep pushing, you know, what you're going for, right? Like getting more BIPOC people in the industry, creating these events and creating this awareness and acceptance, right? Like we spoke the first half of this podcast talking about how that's your goals, right? And I could sense that frustration in you. And I'm thinking maybe that same energy that you have, that you use to put into art, and you have the ability to create that art right away. Whereas that same energy with what you're doing for all these social issues, you can't get that instant.
No.
You can't get that instant relief or whatever. And maybe that's where that sense of frustration comes, because you can't just do it.
That's very true.
And you're waiting, and you have to get through it. And it's like, come on, let's just go. Let's let's just make this happen. Yeah. Whereas with the art, you know, maybe that's like your saving grace, because you can transfer some of that energy.
It's funny. I had a professor in college who commented on the way that I draw and I create art, and he would always be like, "Why do you hold your pen like that? You're just like always just trying to get something out, like you're in control." Yeah. Right, yeah. That might be it. It's just like that delayed gratification. I remember like one of the conversations, I was having that frustration, I think, while we were filming Nexus, you know, of being like, oh, like, why am I here? Why do I get to have this opportunity? Like, this is so sick, but like, I've worked so hard to be here, and I don't know how anybody else who looks like me is going to get this opportunity. And I remember having this conversation with Michelle, and, you know, she's been able to see the industry completely change. And
well, she changed it for herself. Like, she was there.
Totally.
Like, first you start with the women. You know what I mean? Like, she went through what you're going through.
Yes.
For her situation and her, like, how she lives and how she sees the world. And that's just who I am. Right? For her crew, the ladies of the outdoor world, she had to start there. So she's gone through it.
Oh, she definitely has.
And now she's coaching you, which I think is really cool on like your goals and your drive.
And she, you know, was like, you just have to give it time, you know? And I'm like, I don't have time. We gotta drop into this line, and then we gotta go, you know?
Yeah.
We don't got time. I need like.
Well, that's not a bad energy to have. It's like you're always I just want to do it now. I want to work on it now. And I think that's what got you here.
Totally.
Is because you're impatient.
Yeah.
And that impatience gets shit done.
Yeah. I mean, that's not I definitely, feel like my route is not the only route though,
But it's yours.
Yeah.
It's what you know.
Yeah.
It's what you're doing.
Yeah. And there's so many other people who are, feeding into the change that is happening. And, I think that being an athlete is, only one aspect of it. There's so many, communities just doing great outreach, like IWO and Color of the Trails and Edge and Hoods to Woods.
It's
and
happening.
Even like some of the small, like my jump nights that we're having, and, I have a friend who does a queer ride, every dirt church, every Sunday, it's happening for sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Right? You just said it. It's happening.
You're like,
but still, I want you to still be impatient.
Yeah.
And
the
still
fire.
still be frustrated.
Yeah.
But I hope you can actually see what you've done.
Yeah.
And if you're able to, give yourself a pat on the back. Because like I said, I 5 years ago,
yeah,
I wouldn't be having this conversation with anybody, let alone yourself. So a lot's happened, and a lot of it has to do with what you've been doing.
I hope so.
Yeah, I know so.
Yeah.
So congrats.
Thank you.
And thanks for having me over. And thanks for shredding today.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
You come up to Whistler and I'll show you around Whistler.
Yeah, I get lost every time I go up.
It's a big place.
Yeah, it's a huge place.
You gotta find a good guide.
Yeah.
Call Alex, call me. We'll sort you out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Awesome. So, first of all, do you have any other like films or any projects that are coming up in the next little bit? Maybe you have to wait till next fall.
I was just part of the Faction collective film that came out this winter.
Yep, Abstract.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
I was like, what is it called again? But yeah, that's like the only thing that's kind of coming out, and yeah.
Right now, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll just work on stuff for next year.
You know what? That has been the goal of the season. Just like chill out.
Chill out.
Yeah.
And see what comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
All right. And then that cool Instagram page that I was talking about, people should go look at that and follow you.
Yes.
What is it?
Bad Gal Brookie.
Bad Gal. Oh, it's Bad Gal Brookie?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out how to say it. Like where does the emphasis go on?
Some people say like, oh yeah, you're Bad Joel. And I'm like, no, it's Bad Gal.
Bad Gal Brookie.
How are you saying it?
I don't. Bad Gull.
Bad Gull.
I was just trying to say it as one word.
Bad Gull.
I don't know. Maybe.
That's great. However you want to say it.
Anyways,
yeah.
But now I know. Now I'm gonna read it and be like, oh, sweet Bad Gal. Yeah. Sick.
She's Bad Gal.
Yeah.
But not like mean bad, like nice, cool bad.
Yeah. Like Michael Jackson's bad.
But not like Michael Jackson.
Oh wait, yeah.
No.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But like you never.
But in the song.
Let's try not to put my foot in my mouth this whole time.
No.
All right, thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for an awesome day, and thanks for having me over to your place.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, sweet.
You've been listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. This has been a Redmark Media production.